Rainbow Brite and the Star Stealer is a 1985 theatrical fantasy film featuring Rainbow Brite as she embarks on a quest to stop the Dark Princess from destroying the source of all light and plunging the entire universe into darkness. And it's surprisingly good. Don't get me wrong, it's definitely an 80s fantasy license made for children, but it tackles its lot in life with dignity, class, and style. Let's talk about it. To start with, Rainbow Brite and the Star Stealer's presentation is splendid, on multiple levels. Most noticeably, all the character designs are extremely distinctive and memorable. It's practically impossible to look somewhere without finding an unforgettably colorful palette, or unique helmet, or fuzzy behemoth that's equal parts Fisher-Price and Magical Girl. Given Rainbow Brite is a brand, creating distinguished characters is an incredibly high priority, and the overwhelming success in that regard is hard to argue against. Some could say it's all a bit garish, but I rather think that's part of the charm. And the characters are not only distinguished through their visual flair, but the beautifully over-the-top acting that informs their personalities to a comical degree. The animation can't quite settle on a consistent quality, but it's also gorgeously fluid where it counts most. There are some shots like Skydancer's introduction, or Murky's glass-shattering descent, or the Dark Princess's prison vortex, which are deeply evocative and immersive. That's kind of important in a space opera fantasy. Speaking of that, Rainbow Brite and the Star Stealer is a space opera fantasy. A baffling choice in genre, but I hope whoever settled on it is well proud of themselves. This is an overwhelmingly colorful setting, rich in atmosphere and saturated with visually arresting environments that occasionally border on surrealism. There's a horse that bucks lightning and dances on clouds. There's an evil space princess who wants to steal a planet by wrapping a giant net around it. There's a destined hero riding a robot stallion, whose power bracelet is a prism for Rainbow's light. The villain, when ultimately defeated, goes out screaming, "No, not the rainbow!" before exploding into a spectacular display of color. Whatever else can be said about the film, it has style. It's fabulous. If I were watching in a theater, I would have clapped at such a dazzling performance. You may be surprised to hear that Rainbow Brite and the Star Stealer has themes. Most noticeably, and most immediately, the joy of spring is brought to the center, and all that spring represents. Light, hope, productivity, togetherness, and society's bustling and hustling desire to belong, to be unified in a goal, the betterment of the world. Spring, and all things it represents, must be protected. The film also touches very briefly on the necessity of winter. Winter is lethargy, rest, relaxation, and a chance to recharge. But what happens when the winter never ceases? When the light and life of spring are lost? A dreaded question that's unfortunately answered by the film's villain, the Star Stealer herself, the Dark Princess. The Dark Princess seeks to capture Spectra, the floating star through which all life and light in the universe flow. Without Spectra, everyone will die. The film isn't shy about saying it either. A surprising amount of the characters in this bubbly children's show straight up admit that certain universal death and destruction are what awaits if the Dark Princess is not stopped. The themes also have surprisingly reasonable payoffs. We get to see what endless lethargy looks like, and how it brings the world into a hopeless, depressive catatonic state. We get to see togetherness, love, and passion overcome selfishness and complacency, often with appropriately dazzling performances from the vocal cast. There's even proper foreshadowing for events which, in any similar film, would go unexplained. One of the most enjoyable examples being the Dark Princess and her pet rock. She has it throughout the film, and it just seems like a minor gag, but it gets a wicked payoff during the story's climax. If there is a downside here, it's the subplots. While they do work toward the overall theme of togetherness, productivity, and life, they don't have much, if any, real payoff. The main characters do all the lifting, period. Not just all the heavy lifting, but all the lifting. It would have been nice if the side plots had more than a tenuous connection to the high stakes set in the main plotline. But hey, the film succeeds far more than it flounders. While the characters in Rainbow Brite and The Star Stealer are nothing profoundly complex or philosophically engaging, they are surprisingly entertaining, well-realized, and stylish. We'll run through the most notable of them. Firstly, there's my personal favorite, Starlight. He's haughty, egotistical, and as vain as he is clever. He's Rainbow Brite's tireless companion who ultimately sacrifices his comfort in pursuit of justice, however much he might whine about it. There are also Murky and Lurky. They're the comically inept side villain trope taken to an unbelievable extreme. You've seen these archetypes countless times before, but the film goes so hard on it that it loops back around and feels fresh again. Their character dynamic is also charming. Murky is the brains, and Lurky is, well, he's just super dumb and painfully innocent. For this reason, Murky gets almost all the punishment, oftentimes when he's foolish enough to try manipulating Lurky to do his bidding. There's the Dark Princess, the primary antagonist for the film, whose entire personality is unrelenting brattishness. She wants what she wants it now, and she's not afraid to kill to get it. She's prone to mood swings and short-sighted idiocy on a grand scale, contrasted with her surprising competence as a sorceress. The secondary male lead, Chris, isn't to be overlooked either. He exists as a contrast to Rainbow Brite. Normally, boyishness is associated with bravery and a headstrong attitude, but in this film it's the opposite. Rainbow Brite is the aggressive hero who leads the charge with a burning sense of duty, and Chris is the more cautious one. The two are a lot like siblings. Even minor characters have distinctive behaviors to make them charming and memorable, and the cast is placed in genuine peril throughout the film, with plenty of life or death situations. It makes caring about them all the easier. The least engaging character in the presentation is Rainbow Brite herself, and to be fair, it usually comes with the archetype. And while they could have done better, her headstrong attitude is a brilliant contrast with how girls were usually portrayed in this time period. Given the relative infamy of the brand and its associated materials, I was surprised by just how high quality Rainbow Brite and the Star Stealer's production really is. Perhaps more important than the unique character designs, adorable vocal performances, and high-stakes fantasy drama, it's got confidence. It's got swagger, moxie, and sparkle. There are many media made for children which just don't care. This isn't one of them. The dedication and pride is apparent, as is the quality resultant of that. I thoroughly enjoyed Rainbow Brite and the Star Stealer. It's a good time. Hey, you made it! We're at the end of the video. Now it's time to talk about my Patreon. Did you know that if you grab certain tiers from it, you can directly influence the content I make? It's true! You can also just offer general support, too. And speaking of that support, some lovely people have already pledged. People I will list for you now. My wonderful supporters are iPompous, Anonymous, Jay, Marth Sinclair, Call Me Haley, Sam Anderson, Some Call Me Anto, Waposa, Mint Horse, Mike Hansen, and Kay Storkson. Thank you all so much for your time and thoughts, and I'll talk to you in the next video.